We're going to go ahead and call to order the special session of the governing body of the city of Lampasas. Tonight, we've got an update on budget modifications, discussion regarding use of available funds.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to take about the first 5 minutes of this evening and just provide you with an update. I will follow along the memo that was distributed to Council late last week. Prior to that, I just want to orient you to the materials that you have aside from the memo and the exhibits that you received last week. The budgets by department are in the order that they will be presented. So the budgets that you see with the top sheet is the department budget by major account, and then you have the detail by minor attached to it. So if you wanted to reference a certain number, ask a question, these are in the order that they will be presented. You'll also notice that we aren't doing all departments tonight, but if council so wanted to hear, from example, the library or the golf course, please let me know and we can schedule them at an upcoming meeting. Let me just run through the memo. What we tried to do is restate what we heard from council. So the items that council asked us to further investigate, as well as provide you detail on, generally are included. There are some items that are not included in some of the numbers or some of the potential options that you have, and certainly staff is anxious to get your input to see if we want to include any of those additional priorities. In terms of the accounts that were designated, that was a request from Councilman Clark. That is included, as well as I will not refer to the individual balance sheets, but those are included, but we have provided you excerpts with those designated accounts. We have provided you options in terms of a vac truck, a sweeper, the earmarking of funds for FD apparatus, Sulphur Creek retaining walls. I know Chris will talk to you a little bit more about his investigation along those lines. And council asked to go ahead and take a look at putting money back into the meter replacement program. What we've provided you with is an option to complete the last approximately 1,370 meters. So it's a little bit bigger chunk than what we had even originally budgeted, but we were so close anyway, we felt like we'd at least throw that out to council. Certainly we want to acknowledge the comments from council relating to the need to make sure that we maintain regulatory compliance with our our wastewater plant. Talked with Councilman White regarding funding of a skate park, and I included that in the notes, as well as additional study to assess interceptor capacity, as well as an electric rebate to customers. So those are items that aren't within some of the options I've presented. However, certainly we do want to hear from you and include those if that is council's desire. The understanding that staff also took away is that the general starting point for the 2021 budget was acceptable, and council felt good about that in terms of the way that was put together. Where we have provided you additional examples of how we might obtain equipment, we have considered purchase over lease, primarily due to interest savings, as well as kind of that burden year in, year out of the lease payments. So if we have the funds, what the option that we've put forward to you is, let's go ahead and buy it rather than covering $150,000 a year lease payment for the next 5 to 7 years. Certainly we can reverse that course if that's council's desire. The excerpted funding sources on page 2 of the memo, we just basically went through the general fund. There are a few designations, account designations within the general fund that we apparently did not undesignate several years ago related to the parks, as well as comp plan, but the assigned as well as unassigned fund balance in general about 2.7 million. We've included motel tax fund, the committed balance about 1.4. The Fund 68, the 2016 capital fund, debt issuance, 584,000. Electric fund, about 7.3 million. Water, wastewater, about 1.4. In terms of the, all of those meet the minimum requirements in terms of fund balance, with the exception of the electric fund, which actually meets 61% of their requirements for an operating year. We just simply put down here the restated year-end projection that we're looking at, 1.7, with the accelerated purchases as well as utilizing some of that for next year. The remainder is about 645 that we performed better than planned for FY20. The final page in your memo were the proposed budget modifications, and what we tried to outline to you is some options that you could consider if you did want to move forward, utilizing some fund balance, utilizing Fund 68. We also threw in historic and tourism use of the hot funds for Hostess House and Colored School, but Camel vac truck, in fact, this number is now increased a little bit. Van will go over that during his discussion with you. But the vac truck and retaining walls at Sulphur Creek, again, these are probably slightly understated at this point. But if you utilized Fund 68 for those, you would have on the order of $100,000 to $139,000 left in that fund. Utilizing fund balance in general fund as well as fund balance in water, wastewater for the sweeper as well as the Neptune meters installation. You would still, on paper, still have a very good financial position, certainly no worse. We looked at because we are carrying over 7 months in electric fund balance, taking a look at earmarking about $400,000 for fire FD apparatus as well as $200,000 for economic development fund. Again, that's kind of an arbitrary number, but it is what looks like we'll transfer this year. And then for Hostess House upgrade and Colored School upgrades, again, somewhat unspecified and arbitrary consideration there, but perhaps bathrooms for the Colored School as well as the finishing touches. And then Hostess House, the MEP assessment, the bringing it up to code as well, possibly a kitchen hood, and maybe even taking a look at accessibility. Certainly, this is not everything on everybody's list, and we fully understand that and would like to get your input on this. What staff has been asked to do tonight is provide you with a brief condition of their department, what challenges they face, what their maybe even beyond 2021 needs will be. We ask them not to get into the weeds too much, but we also don't expect them to paint a picture of rainbows and unicorns for you either. So they're going to tell you about what their needs are as well as the condition of their department and what their potential future needs are. And I will stop there and turn it over to staff unless council has any questions. Ricky and Carlos.
Street Department.
First of all, I want to thank the council for doing the accelerated purchase on that pickup. It is nice, and it's very helpful. I was able to turn over my 3/4 ton pickup over to the crew, and they've utilized it. They've utilized it more than what I would have. I'm gonna go ahead and I got this little deal here about what needs attention. The Fairview drain, ever since the housing development went on over there in Stone Valley, further down from what we call the Fairview drain from Avenue B to 3rd Street, it has caused erosion and all that down through there. Under Fairview, the tin horns are all rotted out in the bottom. So in the future, that's gonna need more attention, because it's not flowing properly, and we're getting lots of calls from the neighbors up in that area saying that it is backing up. So, and I've been talking to Ricky about it, and we got a little plan. We're working on something to bring to y'all to, look into that project in the near future. Other one is, it's been on the books for a while, surplus drain. It starts at, on Surplus, and it follows around under 4th Street behind the houses. That's another one that we've had.
I'm sorry, tell me again where it starts?
On Surplus. And what that drain catches, it catches everything behind Randy's house, that development up there, and it sends it right down through there behind them houses and all through there. As far as drains, I feel that's all that's really needed in the future to look into. For projects, Ricky's gonna touch on this some more. Bathroom at the Public Works facility. I know it's in the budget, but Ricky will touch more on that, and I went through with Frank, and they'll touch on that. Future projects, a couple of years out. East 3rd from Key to Western, I know we've been talking about that for a while, and my understanding is it may go to Live Oak, extending it 1 block. And then project after that would be East 3rd again from Hackberry to the First Bridge. Looking at that, there's lots of stuff that needs to be done underneath the road before that can even be started. And on Caseburg from the railroad to 580, that would complete this whole East 3rd all the way out to 580, and that's just projects all the way out. As far as fleet, the only thing I have is a street sweeper. Other than that, our department's doing well. I got a great crew. I can't complain. They're all good, hard workers. Any questions?
You and I talked earlier in the week about it, and I understand our street sweeper's a little bit older. I kind of like the idea of adding a whole nother job to your department and just having somebody in that street sweeper 30 hours a week. A lot of people just love seeing that street sweeper go by their houses. You know, I mean, they may complain about the dust and whatnot, but still, the majority of people love seeing that street sweeper. Can we utilize our street sweeper now and put it through 30 hours a week?
The current street sweeper, no, we cannot. Manpower-wise, also, if we run it 3 days, that's 24 hours, we're working on it 2 days, average. It's just worn out. And we can't look at the miles on the cab, on the chassis.
Right.
Because the chassis is going to tell you we got 20,000 miles or 30,000 miles, but we can't look at that because that's not what's moving, what's causing everything to work. It's everything inside the hopper that's worn out.
So Carlos, is this a good time to talk about the cost of the new one?
Yes, ma'am.
What page was that on?
The cost of the new street sweeper is $267,000.
And what would make it so expensive? I thought originally we were talking about 150.
Say it again.
150,000?
That's to lease
That's
it.
the lease?
That's a lease.
Okay.
This is the buyout right. I know that I've been talking to our salesman or our rep, and he's held that price for over a year now at $267,000 and some change. And it's not changing any, so, and they're honoring that price.
Okay.
To hit on what Councilman White mentioned as regards to staffing the sweeper, in the event that we were to fund a $267,000 piece of equipment, with the staff that you currently have, are you able to utilize that equipment, and to what extent on a weekly basis?
We would be able to utilize it, just due to the fact that, especially with all this COVID going on, I can just put one guy in there and they can run it. Everybody's trained to run it, cross-trained and everything, so, and I talked to Councilman White, I talked to Finley and Ricky about this, and I'm all for it. It's just finding that extra position to do it. And that third day or the fourth day, they can do maintenance on it, and they can maintenance other stuff throughout the city that, saves the city a lot of money if we do that.
But I think what she's asking is, if we bring in do we have to add an employee? I don't think we do. You can run that sweeper.
Ricky, we gotta get you on the microphone, sir, I'm sorry.
That's all right. What I want to know, and she does too, is can we run the new sweeper with the staff we have, the 30 hours that Mike's looking at, and the other?
Or close to it.
Or close to it.
I mean, it doesn't have to be 30, but
Yeah.
not one day a month.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or-
that was my question, is
Yeah.
how many hours on a weekly basis with the staff that you currently have would you be able to run this piece of equipment?
We could run that sweeper 3 days a week
Without another
with the current
employee.
staff that we have right now.
Well, we're obviously not currently running a sweeper 3 days a week, so what is that staff that you would be pulling to do that job doing at the present?
At this present time, we are going through all the streets and tree trimming, getting everything up, because I know that I've gone through everywhere and I'm hitting limbs with my pickup, so that's what we are currently doing. Especially with these pecan trees, they are full and everything's hanging over the road, so we're trying to get them up. I know I had a work order from the fire department over in the Siouxland addition to go in there and trim up them trees, and we have, and it looks great. Everything's done in that neighborhood.
Good. Does council have any more questions for street department and Carlos? Anything else you want to hit on, Carlos?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Iker in the Parks Department.
I guess so. Is it on? Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our budget's pretty cut and dry. Other than general maintenance and operations, the only thing we added this year was a pole barn for the cemetery to store topsoil and equipment in. It's been needed for several years. Don't know why it hadn't been done, but there are a couple of items on the CIP list that are going to need to be funded here in the next couple of years for sure. Probably next year at most. The liner for Hannah Springs Swimming Pool. The warranty ran out on that liner last year, and it's showing some real signs of wear and tear. It's going to need to be replaced. I had a company come in last year and look at that. Now, this company's proposing to take out the vinyl and replace it with what's known as the new and improved gunite. It's not gunite, but it's a spray-in liner. They said they can do that entire pool for around $88,000. The other thing is the retaining wall along Sulphur Creek and Brook Park. We thought we had a plan put together for that until just this morning. We went down there to check the depth of the silt that's sitting on the bedrock that we're going to have to use for a foundation down there, and it looks like there's at least 4 foot of silt piled up on that bedrock. Yes, so it's going to be more of a project than we had anticipated. I've had bids as low as $30,000 for repairs to that wall and well north of $100,000 if we replace the wall. So I don't know that we have a solid plan in place right now after what we found out this morning.
Do we have the contacts in place to do it, to look at the structural integrity of it and make a recommendation of what needs to be done so that we can look at funding options for that?
Yes, it's in progress right now.
Okay.
We are not in need of any fleet or any equipment at this time. We've done very well. Our guys have done very well maintaining their equipment and their vehicles. Unless y'all have any questions, I don't really have anything to add to the budget.
Have you had any applicants for your cemetery position?
We're hopefully going to transfer from one department to another.
Okay. So the notorious Lampasas City method of stealing from other departments that,
I wouldn't say it's stealing, I'd call it improving.
does council have any questions
Your
for Chris?
turn's over. Also, before I go, I have to say that the addition of the secretary for the Parks Department has been instrumental in making our department more effective, more efficient. Unbelievable difference. Thank you, Vicki Tower.
I was fixing to say, that's a Vicky. I don't care what title you put on her. That's just
Right.
Vicky Tower.
Exactly.
Chris, I did have one question about that liner for the pool.
Okay.
If available to open next year, would that be done before the pool season opened?
It would be up to y'all. If you want to fund it before next swim season,
Can we open next swim season without replacing the liner?
I think so, yes. I would hate to say yes and then something happened to the liner between now and then, but
I'd hate for you to do that too.
yes, at this current time, I would say yes, we can open it.
Thanks.
Any thoughts, kind of like we talked earlier about skate park? I kind of think now is kind of the time just to earmark a little bit of money and set it aside.
Yes,
I think there's a really good group of people that are working proactively on it. It seems like they've made more progress than any other group so far. But I'm sure they're going to raise some money, but it's not going to be near enough to get something done. I think we ought to take something like 6 figures or close to it and earmark it to the side and build a skate park. Just build it and be done. There's no maintenance on it. It's gonna.
I've forgotten how much that was.
I don't know.
sky's the limit.
You can build to scale as
Yeah,
whatever you want to
can-
spend. They
you
can
can
build you
to
one.
whatever you want, but I think a good number is 100,000, 125,000 worth of concrete will go a long way. There's no maintenance on it. There's a bunch of great ideas on since we have the bathrooms over there now. Of course, get with LAFTA and everybody else and make sure everything's going to work. But right there by the bathrooms would be a great spot for a small skate park. I think it would help the pool whenever the pool's back open. If there's any way to even retrofit, the concession stand to serve stuff outside, that could be a big positive to the pool. The only thing that makes money at the pool is the concession stand. So if you can increase that even by people utilizing the park, I think that could definitely make the pool budget a little bit more efficient. I mean, it's selling Doritos and Pop Ice or
Nachos.
whatever, but
As Mr. Parks, is that your desired location for a skate park?
Yes, it would be my number one location, and I'll agree with Mike. The group that's working on it right now is very proactive. They've got lots of great ideas. They're not scared to put their boots to the ground and take off with it either. I've talked with them several times. In fact, they're going to meet with LAFTA, or scheduled to meet with LAFTA tomorrow to get LAFTA's blessing. If they can get that tomorrow, then they will be on the next Parks Board agenda for Parks Board approval. Or
And Finley, CO funds can be utilized for that, correct? The 2016 CO funds? Okay.
Would we have enough CO funds for that and for the retaining walls? Because I think the retaining walls are more important.
So.
We still have 584 in the 2016 CO funds.
Right, so just referencing page 3 of the memo, the first 2 lines there, the Camelback truck, retaining walls, you'd still have about 139,000. Now, again, I think the Camel, you're going to learn here shortly that that's underpriced. So there'll be a little bit more, but there will be some funds available. And as one of your exhibits, you do have the purpose of the CO bonds, which does include improving, acquiring, constructing, improving, repairing, upgrading, and equipping city parks and park buildings. So, Yvonne, we're good, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but can we not utilize hot funds also for a skate park? That is a sporting, I see,
Possibly.
yes.
I would want to probably reach a little further and investigate, or just get an opinion on that, but that's a possibility. If that's the case, then you've got a substantial balance in that fund.
Correct. Council have anything else from Mr. Riker?
Thank y'all.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Sims and his hairdo, and Ricky for water, wastewater.
Good evening, council. I'd first like to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to come discuss our budgets with you. Right off the top, just the challenges of our department in water and wastewater collections is mainly staffing. Staying abreast on all the projects that we have lined out for ourselves, among the other things, the work orders from contractors and home builders. That's the biggest challenge we have and we face daily, is not having enough people to stay abreast of everything that we need to do, plus the things that has to be done. On to what Mr. Finley was discussing earlier. I reached out again to the Camel products, and that price, as Mr. Finley said, has gone up a little bit. It went up $44,000 to a grand total of $438,510.32. We've brought this to you several times, and y'all know the importance of that piece of equipment to not only the water and wastewater department, but the electric department as well. It saves numerous man hours. It's just a very valuable piece of equipment.
Is there an upgrade difference between this quote from January to the,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They upgraded the models.
okay.
And the only other thing I wanted to speak to tonight were the meters. And like Mr. Finley said, basically to get everything done, as far as the 3/4 inch residential meters, we're looking at a grand total upgrade of an additional $191,000 and $191,112 addition to what has been budgeted.
But that takes care of all the meters, right?
It will take care of the residential 3/4 inch meters, not the 1 inch or 2 inch. We'll have to come back and do those separately, just because of the cost of the other meters. Yes, yes, that includes installation.
The
purchase.
191 includes the installation of the,
Yes. The purchase of basically 13,000 or 1,300 meters and the installation of them.
what would remain, as you were mentioning, the different sizes would not be included in this installation. How many would remain?
I reached out to Felicia this afternoon she was off. That's why I didn't get a response back, to see what we have left as far as the 1 inch, 2 inch, and larger.
So we're not sure of a number yet.
Yeah, it won't be like
Okay.
200 probably.
How many more staffing are you needing?
I would really like to see 3, 1 at the wastewater plant and 2 in the water distribution collections department. And the two would be separated, one in the construction side of it and the other one in the maintenance side of it.
And so these employees are not included in your budget at this point? These are additional?
Yes, they would be additional. If future, for sure. In 2 or 3 years, we're definitely going to have to grow.
Future, but not necessarily this year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Or all at one time? Of the 3 positions, what's the most urgent need?
Most urgent would be in the water and the wastewater, the two in the distribution and collection.
The construction?
Yes.
Or the maintenance? Construction?
The construction side, for sure.
What's the pay range on that position, Finley? Do you know?
It's,
Microphone.
Like a utility tech, just a ground floor, it starts at like 13. So we have a hard time getting people in. But that's where
What's the range, 13 to what?
13 to 19. And that's bringing somebody in just, with the 13, just train them on the job.
Yvonne, not to put you on the spot, but at some point, could you get us burden cost just at the average, like, of say 15 for that position? Anything else? Council have any questions for staff from wastewater?
It's been a couple weeks since I've looked into anything, but are we accepting septic callers anymore now, or has that been?
not yet. We were going to start at the 1st of August, but the last 2 weeks of July, the plant took a nosedive again. When I left this afternoon, the DO, the dissolved oxygen, which is what we're monitoring right now, was just a little bit above a 1 on the east side of the aeration chamber. The west side was over a 2. So you see the discrepancy in the health of one side versus the other. So until they maintain a good number all day long, we're going to hold off on the septic haulers.
What's a good number?
We want them at a 2.
Is there something we can do to get it there?
Seeding every week, that we talked about.
We're
that last week.
reseeding every week. We stopped when we thought that the plant was going to maintain the DO, and then that's when it fell off. So we scheduled again, and we're just going to continue to seed until the numbers don't move again.
And this is the main plant, not the pretreatment, or is this the pretreatment?
Yes, ma'am, that's the main plant.
Are there any issues with the pretreatment, you think? Or no?
No, ma'am.
Other than capacity, but that's a separate issue.
Capacity.
Anything else from council?
I would still like to be able to take a tour of that whole facility just to see what we're talking about. For sure, I've been through it before, but I think there's been so many changes in what's happening that, to me, the soonest we can, I would appreciate it. Not just the shop, the new shop, but the
whole plant, yes,
itself.
sir.
But
He can come down anytime he wants to, can he? You can come down anytime you want.
I will do that. I will set up an appointment with Ricky to do that then.
All right, thank you, Van.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Next up, we have Flint, going to stay with the city forever, Giggly out of the electric department.
Doesn't look like he's aged at all. How you do that, Flint?
Put this on. Mayor and council, what I would like to start out with is some of our department improvements and efficiency that we have done over the past, probably over the past 2 years. One of them is we've had 2 employees become line workers. which has really, really helped. We have a well-established tree trimming program. We continue to purchase this device called a Trip Saver, which helps our lines. We're also in the process of changing out all the street lights and the security lights to LEDs. Whenever they go out, then we put up a new one. If the bulb goes out, we go ahead and put up a new one. If we've got to touch it, we might as well change it. We had a pole inspection done in 2014, 2015. That's probably one of our main things that we've done. They said that we had about 400 poles that we needed to change out that were bad. We've probably changed out close to 300 of those. So we've been really staying on that, and that's really been helping our department. Now, also with the electric meters, we have finished the swap out on all the electric meters. There are still a few out there that are going to have to be manually read no matter what. They're just a different type of meter. We're also trying to purchase some new ones that are, instead of a 200 amp, they're going to be about a 320 amp. So the customers don't have to purchase a CTs, which are pretty expensive. But that are our main deficiencies that we do. Of course, you know that we maintain about 5,000 poles, 2,200 transformers, which is about 100 miles of overhead electric, about 2 miles of underground electric. Some of our recent projects that we've done are the Strip Center by Walmart, Stone Valley, Brody Estates, the New Covenant Church, Burger King, Assisted Living, the bathrooms in Campbell Park. And we service over 4,000 meters. Really do not have any major changes on our budget this year. Probably the major thing that we're requesting is to upgrade our bathrooms down there at the city barn. They're getting in pretty bad shape. Some of the concerns that we have is we have a couple of fiber companies coming in, and they're going to want to be getting on our poles. Some of our poles are older. Some of them don't have the height requirements that they're going to need to be able to have that distance over the streets or even that distance away from our power lines. So that stuff is going to need to be changed out. That's going to take some time for us, depending on how fast they jump on it. That'd just be one thing that we have to work through. We have a crew that can do it. It will just take away from some of the other daily stuff that we normally do. But
Can somebody explain to me why the burden falls on us to replace our equipment to meet the needs of another company?
They would pay for it, but we would want to do the work if it's our system, our distribution, correct?
yes. Could we have somebody come in and do it? Sure. But to me, we're already here. We know our equipment. We know what we can do rather than have to deal with an outside company. Any other questions?
Questions from
Are
council?
you wanting the bathrooms upgraded like within this next year, and do we have any quotes on that?
Yeah, we just gotten one quote, because just wanted to have a number, and it was around 20,000. And that's going to be split between street and electric. They're in really bad shape, y'all.
I've seen it. I don't know why we wouldn't get it done.
Yes. I'd like to put a shower in there for them. I mean, they work hard, and they're out there.
It's
Put 'em
about,
yeah,
there's a standard to,
there's a standard. You're exactly
and
right.
that is not anywhere near it.
No.
They deserve a bathroom.
Bathrooms are in the budget.
They are already.
Flint, I was just curious, because you had mentioned that you guys are changing out those LEDs whenever y'all can. Are the new ones, the dark skies compliant? Do you have any idea?
If you're talking about whether they really
Shine
shine
down.
up, they all shine down, yes.
Yes, sir.
They're, I guess what they call light pollution control, where they do shine down. They don't shine out
Right.
because they don't have the regular street lights don't have the little shade on them that shoots the light on out or up. But yes, they shine down.
Thank you.
Anything else for Flint? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you, always. Chief Bailey and the police department. You never come to this alone.
I'm sorry?
You never come to this alone.
I know. They abandoned me. As you know, the Lampasas Police Department responsibilities are to protect life and property and maintain order in our community. We do this by community policing. Our community policing has given us a very strong, positive image in our community and a lot of support. We also do this by crime prevention. Most police department police work is reactive, and we try to be more proactive in crime in our community. We work criminal investigations to solve crimes against persons, property, and recovery of stolen and missing property. We arrest and help with the prosecution of offenders. We conduct accident investigations, traffic enforcement, and work with TxDOT, the city manager, and others to have better roadway designs and ordinances to help prevent accidents in our community. We assist the sick and the injured and those in mental crisis or with behavioral crisis issues, enforce the laws of the state of Texas, and those include municipal, state, county, and federal. For the size of our department, we're very proud of all the services that we are able to provide, and we thank you for that. You're the reason that we're able to have our sex offender registration programs, our code enforcement programs that we have, our animal control programs. We easily serve about 100,000 people a year in Lampasas. That's our calls for service, our department contacts, our community programs, phone calls, 911, security for the schools, in the schools and for the schools, and our day-to-day contacts with different businesses. So in the 2019-2020 budget, I told y'all we would be back in 2020, 2021. We have some special challenges and changes this year that we need to address. First off is in our budget is areas that will majorly impact not only us, but other first responders as well. One of the first areas for the 2020-2021 budget is radio communications. It's a huge benefit for us to upgrade our radio communications for us, the fire department, and for public works. When we can't use our radios to communicate, this puts a burden on everyone, especially our dispatch and other agencies, to make that connection for us. And they do that by phone or by radio or handheld or computer when they can. You know, we've told y'all that we're an island among ourselves. We need to be able to better communicate outside of our island. Communication is receiving and sending information. For us, it's a lifeline. We have to be able to reach others in order to have that lifeline. With that, we have a grant with the Central Texas Council of Governments. It's a $253,000 grant. And then we would need roughly about $450 more to get that system, communication system. Also in the realm of communications in our budget, we need a computer-aided dispatch CAD system. We still handwrite our daily logs. It's almost like having a big chief tablet and a pencil. Computer-aided dispatch will ensure better service, more accurate service by our department. We paid for a ticket writer software company the first time in 2011 with a cost share with municipal court. That was around $54,000. We had to pay for that service again in 2015, and we extended that out until the 2019-2020 budget where they gave us a 5th year free. With that, we had a substantial reduction in our budget last year. This year, this next year, the 2020-2021 budget, we feel that we can do better than we've done in the past by adding the Cardinal system. And with that, we would have a CAD system, ticket writer system, and more with that. it would be our software that we would purchase, and then we would pay yearly maintenance and upgrade fees. Also includes our ticket writer, and like I say, some other options that we need. And that would be cloud-based. The current software, without a contract, agreed to provide us with another year of service for $13,218. If that's going to be their yearly cost for 5 years, that's $66,090. The Cardinal CAD system is currently just less than $65,000. That would give us a CAD system, a ticket writer, our fleet tracking also. And then in the years to come, each year we would pay our service fee, maintenance cost, and then our cloud cost. Currently, our dispatchers in our system that we have now, they have to enter 7 different areas of information. With the CAD system, they would enter at one time, and it would disseminate to those other areas. This also includes information transfer to the fire department, to their records management system, and continue with our transfer to municipal court for our citations with that. Also, in talking about better communications, our telephone system, it has served us well also. We've got our money's worth out of it. It's time for us to get a new telephone system. We've had it over 20 years. It's obsolete at this time. The volume in dispatch is a little scratchy. We don't know if it's scratchy because we're so used to better technology or if it's just there are times we can't hear. We're out of replacement phones for the system, so if we have a phone go out, we would just be without. Someone at the department would be without. And there are many officers in the back that don't have phones because 20 years we didn't have as many people working at the department as we have now. So if we could, we'd like to replace that as well. And that's about $21,000, between $19,000 and $21,000 to replace that. And our equipment, one of the best purchases that we've ever made was body cameras. Those body cameras have reached their life expectancy, and they're costing us more to warranty them than not right now. So the company has offered us, WatchGuard has offered us a program. It's a 3-year program where we can pay $14,000 a year with no interest, rather than paying $42,000 every 3 to 5 years to replace our cameras. So we would like to purchase our cameras, our body cameras, at $14,000 a year, and start that perpetual program like we have done with our tasers. So rather than purchasing everything at once, we've added tactical gear throughout the years that I've been chief. This year, we would like to add an aim-point rifle sight and ballistic bulletproof helmets. We can pay for the aim-point patrol rifle sights out of seized funds and the helmets out of the budget. We are blessed to be in Lampasas and to have the support that we have. Our challenges are many. If you turn the television on, watch the news, you can see what most of our challenges are right now. We have challenges with officers being killed daily, injured daily, defunding of police department where people are leaving those areas and moving to safer communities. That increases our crime, and we're going to see a lot more of that in the future. Also, civil unrest. It brings with it crime, division of people, and instability in areas. We don't have that, but we do have people that are moving from that to our areas. Then throw in the coronavirus, and that has challenges all its own for everyone. You can imagine being a police department, we double and triple our work volume because a simple task now takes more. We have to find unique ways to deal with different types of situations in entirely different ways. Another great purchase that the city has made is our police department building. And with that, we are very grateful for what we've been able to upkeep and with LCRA's grant that we had so that we could make our building more professional looking and also add more room to the squad room. We need to keep up with our upkeep and maintenance, and so we'd like to replace some flooring and some countertops. And then we'd just like to say thank you for your support. Like I say, we've been blessed with that, and the support that you give us helps us so that we can better serve our community. Any questions or concerns? Yes, sir?
I know you normally have a couple people coming up or possibly in cadet program, but with everything going on, I imagine it's going to be extremely difficult to, I don't know anybody that would want to be a cop right now, put it that way. You have any people coming up in mind through the Cadet Academy or anybody that you can add as we need? I mean, I don't see a whole lot of people lining up to be a cop anymore.
We do have recruitment challenges, and we have found that if we can find someone vested in our community that truly wants to help with our community and make our community better, that they serve us a lot better. We've had 2 that just recently graduated from the academy. One is still with us. One is no longer with us. We have talked about sending some more people to the academy. The academy has reduced its attendance right now, so we're not able to just send anyone right at this moment for reserve. But if we had that option in the future, we'd be happy to do that. As you just mentioned, it is getting harder and harder. I mean, we've had problems throughout the years, but with everything that is going on currently, it is very difficult to find people that want to be police officers. But believe it or not, there are still good people out there that do want to be and do, find themselves in an academy.
What is the cost to the city to send someone to the academy, and then what commitment do we ask out of them in return?
I'm sorry, Mayor, the cost to send someone to the academy?
And then how long do we ask them to stay on in return?
For us, it's a minimal cost of about $250, plus we have to pay for their psychological, their health screening. We have to complete their background with that. And then once they get in the academy, it's about a 9-month process, 6-9-month process for them before they're on their own.
Of all the items that Chief Bailey just brought up to us, can you tell us which are already in the budget, please?
This is easy because we've included all of this in the
That's what I
budget.
thought. Okay.
The other thing that I do want to point out that Chief Bailey is very meticulous with her numbers. And so when she came to me with, okay, body cameras, telephone system, she says, I have this excess in these accounts. So we actually will probably, through additional savings within her department, be able to go ahead and take care of telephone system, body cameras this year. CAD Cardinal is budgeted for next year. Flooring and those minor upgrades are budgeted. Obviously, the radio communications with the matching grant is secured. So I think the PD, in terms of this budget, is taken care of.
Does council have any questions for Chief Bailey?
No. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Hey, other chief, your turn.
Good evening from the other chief. A couple things I wanted to focus on this evening, just to go over and make notes for y'all. As far as our budget for this next coming year, if you look at the bottom line, everything's right in line with that, but we did do some reorganizing of how our budget is laid out. That's probably the biggest thing. If you go row by row and you look at certain areas, I worked with the city manager and also worked with the finance director in helping me make sense of how we account for all the different expenditures that we have. If you were to look at small tools and hand tools during this last year, you would see that there's a lot of money in there, $21,000. And now this next year, we've dropped that way down. Out of that one line item right there, we paid a huge amount of annual testing for hose, for different equipment that we have, where we have to have that maintained on a regular basis and an annual expense. Part of the reason, again, for reorganizing that was so that the new fire chief could understand why we had all this money, but we didn't ever buy anything with it. What we were buying was our annual test to make sure that we comply with the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, and then how much money I did have left that I could get new equipment with. So that's why when you see a couple of rows in there, bunker gear cleaning, hose testing, ladder testing, pump testing, hose testing, there's a lot of testing that goes on in the fire service to make sure that we stay with that. So that's why some of those numbers were reorganized. Probably the biggest number that some of you may be aware of, our telephone service number, I think that that's going to go down. That's an astronomical number. I've been working on that for some time, and hopefully we've got that problem solved. We were paying over $1,300 a month for our phone service at the fire department, and at this point, I believe we're paying less than $100 a month, and we're loving it. We're enjoying it. The phone gets answered. We have phone messages that get to us all the time. We don't have any problems or any worries with phones anymore. So thank y'all for allowing me to do that. The other item in our budget is our one capital expense for this year, and that was the extrication equipment. We've already wiped that out. Unless y'all want to leave $45,000 in there for me to do something else with, you can take that out of my budget this time. We've actually ordered that, and we've received part of that already. The next part that I want to talk to you about is the communication equipment. I think Chief Bailey has done a great job of letting you know that, the fire department gets some of this too, and it helps us out. I've worked quite a bit with Chief Bailey and Lieutenant Montgomery on this project, and this is not just something that should be kind of like, oh, the fire department gets some of this too. This is a great step forward for the fire department. In talking with Lieutenant Montgomery, his concern is that we're taking steps going in the right direction, and that this is getting us headed the right way. With what it looks like and what we already have in place, this does what we need it to do for the fire department. This is not just, it's a step in the right direction. With what we have in emergency reporting systems, we've already checked into a couple of different places. They'll write the software that patches our emergency reporting system together with the Cardinal reporting system. This should solve a lot of our problems. This should help a lot with us. This will give us hydrant locations. This will give us past calls. This will give us a lot of information as far as communications. Plus, it increases our ability to talk in certain buildings around the city. It brings us up to what I've actually worked with throughout my entire career in the Metroplex. A gentleman came in to explain to firefighters how to use these fancy radios and stuff like that, and he kept looking at me, and he was like, "Do you have any questions?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "You don't seem very excited." And I was like, "I've worked with these since 1991. So we're moving in that direction, and this is a huge thing for the fire department. I can't thank you enough for moving in that direction. I really, truly appreciate that, and it increases our safety and our productivity tremendously. Thank you. Other things that I would need to talk about would be looking down the road at fire personnel. I'm not saying I need to add fire personnel at this time, but if we look at moving into another fire station in the next 5 years, we're going to have to increase the amount of personnel that we have. I know that looking around, you don't look at the fire personnel that we have right now, but some of them are a little bit older. I have 3 gentlemen that in 5 years may not be here. Actually, 4 gentlemen in 5 years that may not be here. And when you take 4 people out of that group of 12 right now, that's a big cut. But you replace them, then you also increase, you double your size. Now I've got 16 new people with less than 5 years of experience. And that's a good problem to have, but I think it's a problem also that we could solve before we get to that point by hiring people along the way. Hiring people along the way would give us the experience going into that, getting people that would be taking care of those positions, a little bit more experience ahead of time. Plus, it decreases the impact to the city budget of an all-at-once growing so rapidly and having to come up with that much money more. Not the last thing, but one of the next things, fire apparatus. That's always going to be something that we're probably going to have to face here in the city of Lampasas and needing to update fire apparatus. You start adding another fire station, that makes it even more relevant. You're not just adding a new fire truck once every 10 years, but now if you've got 2 fire stations, you've got to add one every 5 years or add 2 every 10 years. So you start getting on that schedule. So those are things that you have to look forward to. And probably the last thing that I would add in there, Chris Iker was talking about the fact of having Vicky in the Parks Department, and I thought that that was a great compliment. And that's something that we could potentially look at also, as far as if you want to help out with what we do in the fire department to be more effective, more efficient, more productive, all those things like that. Not just somebody to answer the phones. I've got 2 phones, and we get those phones answered now. I don't need somebody just to be there in a smiling face whenever they walk in the door. I've got that with the fire marshal when you walk in the door, and then if I'm in there. Y'all have no idea how much the fire marshal smiles.
You don't get that from the fire marshal, sorry.
I do. We've done wonders down there. But no, I mean, somebody to help do documents, somebody to help go through and do word searches, and when you're writing emergency management planning documents, when you're trying to get stuff out. I have a tremendous amount of help, but the people that I get help from are the finance director, the IT director, the city manager. And if I have somebody else to have ideas to bounce things off of and to make sure that documents are grammatically well done and spell check and all that kind of stuff, it really goes a long way. And I know y'all think I'm wonderful, but just think how much better you'd think I was if I could write an email that had correct spelling in it. So I'd echo exactly what Chris Iker says, as far as don't ever underestimate what those assistants do for all the department directors. It's a tremendous amount of help, and it really does make us more effective and more efficient. So if that's all that I had on my list, do y'all have any other questions for me, or specifically on communications or apparatus or anything like that?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you, sir. Up next is Monica with Information Systems.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm going to stay right here if that's okay. I'll be brief, and I'll discuss any significant changes or needs in the proposed FY 2021 IT budget outside of normal annual reoccurring operating costs in our department. The proposed FY 2021 IT budget decreased slightly from FY 1920. This is due to some accelerated purchases that were made, as well as some additional savings in other areas related to licensing, travel training due to COVID. We have identified, I guess, around 4 major projects that we're asking for. And those include increased internet bandwidth, replacement of 2 firewalls and Cisco switch, replacement of IT building windows and a server room wall, and some increased maintenance costs. I'll start out by talking about our number 1 priority, which is increased internet bandwidth. This line item is increased due to the need for additional bandwidth and speed for our city network. We are suggesting that we go with a 250 megabyte per second dedicated fiber internet service. This would come from AT&T in the amount of $1,300 per month or $15,600 annually. Our current internet service is at 100 megabytes per second from AT&T in the amount of $860 per month or $10,320 annually. This would be an increase in this line item in the amount of $5,280 annually. But this is very much a priority for us. We have added several buildings to our city network. Also, additionally, adding the PD video cloud method that has also really increased the need for us to have more bandwidth. And as we add more buildings, more personnel, we go to more web-based programs. We're all pulling from that 100 meg internet service. So currently, right now, we've had to set policies in place to cap out certain speeds throughout the day just to keep the network up and going during the day. I'll go on to talk about the need to replace 2 of our firewalls. We need to replace these 2 firewalls because when we increase our internet speeds, the current firewalls that we have right now will not support that. let's see, after increasing the network bandwidth and the speeds, we'll need better equipped firewalls to support the increased speeds. Currently, the library is also in need of a replacement firewall because theirs is no longer supported, and we can no longer really, do firmware updates to it. So we would actually be able to utilize the existing city firewalls at the library. Also, in this line item, we replace around 15 to 20 computers and laptops annually. We replace around 15 monitors as well as 6 printers. We also need to replace a failing Cisco 52-port power over Ethernet switch that resides on our network. And in that line item, everything else is pretty much stays the same annually. Moving on to building grounds and maintenance. In FY 1920, we did some minor cosmetic improvements to the IT building. Although the amount we are requesting in this line item is not an increase for FY 2021, we wanted to make council aware of the priority and the need to replace the exterior windows that are leaking. We are also requesting that a wall be built in our server room with a locking door for storage and added security. There's a total of 7 windows, and every time we get a very heavy rain, we are mopping. So that is a priority for us. As far as the maintenance cost increase, this line item is increased from FY 1920 due to annual increases in software support and maintenance costs, as well as increases in website hosting and additional maintenance costs related to some needed cloud storage and additional subscription licenses needed after bringing other departments onto our city network. Other than that, it's our budget stays pretty much the same as far as our operating costs. Are there any questions?
When did we start having leaking windows at the old council chambers?
We found out about them when Monica moved in.
Think maybe that carpet was hiding it from us?
Yes.
Could be.
Okay.
Are these items in your budget, Monica, the ones you?
Yes, they're all included in the budget.
Council have any questions for Monica? Thank you.
Thank you.
How did we get so lucky, Mr. Frank and the building department?
Everybody says that. Evening, council. I'll make this as brief as I can. There's not much in change for my budget, but what I'd like to bring up to y'all's attention is I do plan on some operational changes for 21-22 budget, and to bring up the fact that a lot of the things that I do dovetail with the other departments, such as the fire department, wastewater, streets, electric. All of that can be mitigated. A lot of the damage and stuff done there. It's, for instance, the grease trap ordinance that we passed this year has gone a long way towards helping our infrastructure, in my opinion, and it's still just a start. That being said, I'd like the council to really take into consideration making building inspections a priority for the upcoming year or two, because this town is growing, and if we don't get hold of what's going on here and don't address it, you know, everything from curbs and sidewalks to infrastructure are going to suffer. And I'd like to put some resources and time and effort for that in the next year or two.
In what form? Are you talking staffing? Are you talking about bringing on outside services for contracting? Or
Mostly staffing, so we can develop a development services office and get some programs up and going, stuff that concern health, such as backflow, and stuff that gets us kind of on par with other communities in the Central Texas area.
So how many staff would you be looking at?
Excuse me?
How many staff
2 to 3?
over a period of 2 to 3 years, or would you need them right
That's
away?
correct.
This is one of those things where if we screw up in our policies and our enforcement of those policies, we can't go backwards. Those things get built, those things exist. We can't change what's already done. We can't fix it later. We have to fix it before it happens.
I would agree.
And could someone give us some numbers, Yvonne, maybe, about the cost of those staff people?
Anything else, Frank?
No.
Council? Thank you, sir.
And when you're saying staffing, you're talking more building, like building inspectors, or are you talking what kind of staffing? Just. I'm sorry? Staffing, are you talking more building inspectors, or what kind of staffing?
Not necessarily.
Microphone.
Not necessarily building inspectors, also water backflow protection specialist, and possibly a planner or another inspector. It just depends on the direction the council wants to go with it.
One of the positions that water, wastewater had asked for, could they be cross-trained to help cover some of that on the backflow end?
That's correct. One of our employees has already asked about that.
I'm loud enough anyways, though, right? What do you mean by planning? Like engineer type?
An engineer would be great, or even a engineering assistant would even be good.
Agreed.
We don't have to have a full engineer, but we could get somebody that's training to be an engineer, bring them on, let them get their seal, and then take, hopefully be able to retain them on staff.
Yeah, maybe cut down on some engineering cost as well.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Last but not least, boss lady herself, Yvonne, in the finance department.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just have a couple of comments to go over. On the utility side, in the utility department, our new fiscal year 2021 is down from previous year. In hand tools, we're going to need some receipt printers. The old printers that we had are not compatible with Windows 10, and they don't fix the old ones anymore. So they're about $1,000 a piece. So we'll need to replace a few of those, and then I do have a utility clerk that needs a new printer. It's printing lines and everything, so I've got that in there. Office equipment maintenance went up a little bit. In code, our annual maintenance is going to go up every year, so we put that in there. The main thing I'm really wanting to talk about is a part-time utility clerk. We had Felicia's our billing clerk, and she was sitting up front to take utilities. With the more houses that we have, the more billing that we have, she would get interrupted constantly, take payments, phone calls, and there was, she would go back to billing where she was at, then we would have mistakes. But being able to put her in an office and remove her from that and let her focus on her job has helped us out tremendously. But in doing that, I took away a utility clerk. So now either her or Bessie, the accountant, has to cover the window, and they're switching weeks back and forth. So if I could hire just a part-time person in the afternoon to cover the back window at the starting salary, with retirement, FICA, everything, workers' comp, they wouldn't have insurance. It's about $18,600 to put a part-time person in utility department. That would help us out a lot. That way the girls could still focus on their jobs and not have to be going back and forth. That's it on the utility department. Finance, we'll do a professional services increase a little bit. That's always going to go up every year with our audit, our disclosures. All that's going to go up a little bit. That just went up just a little bit. And basically, we're pretty much the same everywhere else.
And this utility clerk, part-time billing clerk is not in your budget?
I'm sorry.
The position that you talked about, the part-time position, is it included in the budget numbers already?
It's not included in the budget, no. Jeff and I have thrown around the thing about doing a full-time in the morning for him and the afternoon for me. We could kill two birds with one stone there.
What does the burden cost become if it becomes a full-time employee since we add health insurance?
I'd have to add that to it.
Okay.
But I can get you a number for that. Also, just a quick note, with Senate Bill 2 on the property tax, the way that we do public hearings and all of that has changed this year. We normally do a record vote. We hold 2 hearings. That's changed. So I'm updating the budget calendar right now. Looks like we're only going to have to do 1 public hearing, but it has to be within so many days of the day that you adopt the tax rate. But a lot of that has changed.
Council have any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We've run through all the departments. The next item is discussion and possible action regarding modifications to the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Mayor and council, would it be helpful to just review the quick notes that I've taken, which relate to your comments? Street department, concentration on drainage projects. The bathrooms are in the budget. The paving, Key to Western, possibly with the extension to Live Oak, we would take a look at. By and large, those items are within the budget, the current budget. You have increased it for next year to finish Avenue E as well as East 3rd Street. On parks, the Hannah Spring Pool liner is obviously a concern. We think it's probably a 2022 project, but we want to be prepared in the event that it isn't, that it requires some attention prior to the 21 season. Chris will be working on the retaining wall, and council's been offered some options for funding that. I believe it was out of 68. Yes, out of 68. In terms of skate park, I think council had indicated interest in that project and wanted us to take a look at perhaps using some remaining funds out of Fund 68, as well as investigating the use of hot funds as one of our attractions that would bring folks into town. Water, wastewater, there was some discussion related to the pressures of that department and of growth. The increase in the vac truck, about an additional $43,000 from what was in the original estimate. That is something that council's been given an option related to funding out of the 2016 CO Fund 68. Also discussed completion of the meter project, with the exception of a few odd-sized meters. The 191, 112 would finish out, I would say probably 95 to 97% of the projects, and council's been offered an option on that out of fund balance as a possible funding source. We do want to, and not just Chuck, but anybody else that would like to jump in a car and take a look around the wastewater treatment facility as well as a new shop and lab, Ricky can reach out to all of you on that. On the electric side, Flint talked a little bit about some of the potential stresses on their human resources if they do need to change out and do some make-ready pole for the fiber. Flint still here? You know, I think generally speaking, a lot of the poles that we've been replacing have been the higher poles, the Class Bs. The poles that we have been using for replacement, we've typically gone up a class.
Yes, we've gone up in height and class.
Right, so as we replace these poles, we've been putting in taller poles with more diameter. So I guess I'm hopeful that maybe there won't be a whole lot of pole change outs, but nonetheless, if we have to change out 4 or 5 a week, that's still time spent between manpower and equipment.
When
on
we
those.
look at the cost that we charge to these companies that we upgrade these poles for their benefit, we need to calculate in an overtime cost if we've already got staff maxed out on their hours.
Yes. The meter change out is by and large complete with the exception of the manual read. And the other item on their list, which is funded, is the upgrade to the shop bathrooms. PD, I think you heard from Chief Bailey regarding radio communications, the SITCOG grant, telephone system, body cameras, flooring, and the CAD Cardinal system. Those are by and large included in the budget. FD, again, relating to the growth of our community and the possibility of a substation, you know, maybe the phased approach in terms of personnel, apparatus, as well as the need for some administrative support. You do have within your memo the option or a consideration for utilizing some fund balance to earmark, you know, initially $400,000 for a new apparatus. It would probably be, I would imagine, a 21, 22 type of purchase. IT, the building as well as bandwidth, major programs, and you know, I consider the other items that Monica talked about, kind of nuts and bolts. We need firewalls, we need new computers, those sorts of things. All in all, her budget has been managed well over the past several years, and it's actually a decrease over the current year budget, and just basically flat compared to her projected year end. Building official and building department development, you know, the formalizing of more of a development services office, maybe an additional 1 to 3 staff persons over the next 1 to 3 years. Currently, your budget does not include anything for an increased staff person for FY21. There is a possibility of maybe, you know, as some of these crossover regulatory items come up, grease traps, backflow, et cetera, you know, can we utilize water, wastewater, and of course you heard from Van that they don't really have a whole lot of resources to share, but that may make some sense in terms of the implementation of those programs. And then Yvonne, again, part-time billing clerk. I think maybe a common thread is that the impacts of growth and additional rooftops and those development type pressures, you know, continue to put stress on people signing up for utilities and people needing sewer taps and water taps for new housing and businesses going in that require attention from Frank. And so to paint a picture as well, when somebody comes in with a project, we don't just accept a form. We take a team approach. This is resources that Ricky has, Ronnie, Frank, Flint. So, you know, a project such as Burger King, I mean, I can't tell you the number of hours we spent on that before even a permit was written up. So that's the type of service that your staff is delivering. And I think it's helpful in the long run, but I think it's probably not characteristic of a lot of communities our size. They do a good job, and I think that's a job we should do. But that was just my glance at the notes, Council, and we'd be interested in your comments.
Council, please understand this is your opportunity to give specific directives to staff. If there's any points that were brought up this evening that you want to be sure are considered in the budget, you need to give those to Finley at this time. Otherwise, I do feel as though it would be prudent to point out the fact that budgetary needs and staffing needs would need to be filtered through Finley unless council has a specific desire to see a certain item funded or looked into. We need to let Finley figure out who, what, and where. Council has no recommendations on any item that we discussed this evening?
I think it's a good idea to hire somebody and split between Chief and Yvonne. That's simple and small. Since day one, I was always about anything that makes it more efficient. You know, efficiency is money in the bank, always. If it's going to make two people's jobs more efficient, let's hire somebody.
I do think we need to keep staffing at water, wastewater at the top of the list as to implement. I mean, I'm not saying put 3 new people on staff, but
Keep it in mind.
we can't fall behind in that department ever, ever, never, ever, ever, never.
What about a sweeper truck? What is y'all's thoughts on that?
I believe we need to replace it based on what I'm hearing from all the citizens. They really do.
You have the most muffled face mask in existence.
I said, I believe we do need to replace the street sweeper, based on all the complaints I hear from people who want the streets swept.
And we don't need to throw good money after bad. If it's falling, I'm tired of the Band-Aid approach. We spend more money on patching, replacing, and temporarily holding ourselves over in several different areas.
And I also would like to say that if we're going to spend $500,000 between the hostess house and the colored school, I would prefer that more of it go to the hostess house as a viable entity that we have, something that we need to be proud of. I'd say let's get that.
I too also have an asterisk beside the amount that we have listed for the colored school upgrades. While I think we need to take a pause and look at the difference in what we're trying to accomplish here. Yes, that colored school is a historically significant asset to our community, and we have a responsibility and should take care of it. But what will we, in the end, be utilizing it for? And I cannot imagine any purpose coming out of that utilization that is equivalent to an additional $300,000 to be spent there. What is it council's desire to spend another $150 to put in a bathroom over there because they think at some point we're going to be utilizing that facility that's not ever been requested to be utilized? Or do we want to protect our historic asset, preserve it, make sure it's taken care of, and then spend our resources in other areas? Because that's going to be my recommendation. Spend it where we're going to use it. Take care of it. Please, by no means does anybody need to take away from this that we don't think we need to spend money there. We just need to be all on the same page about what it is we want to spend and what's our limit and desire with that project.
I've always looked at that as more of a historical marker and monument than a facility that gets used. I think the use is minimal. I think that number should.
I think we could
preserve it, but the hostess house would be 100% more of.
We will never, you could never put $300,000 into that facility and us utilize it to that extent in any capacity. So I think we need to meet with, I think there's a group of individuals that were a part of that project, maybe have a conversation with them about what's left to be done to take care of it the best we can. And then our resources need to be going to assets that we can utilize.
And what is all in that figure? Because I guess I'm not clued into what $300,000 at the.
This is an arbitrary, unspecified number. However, I did think, okay, if you did want to put a detached bathroom there, that would cover it. But to be honest with you, if you're talking about replacement of the tin ceiling, light fixtures, flooring, you're probably looking at less than 50.
I think that would be the thing.
Probably some flat work too, but.
I like the idea of preserve
Yes.
whatever we need than any additional adding on or
Sure.
building of any kind, just my thoughts.
I agree the money should be pushed toward the hostess house and getting that up and more
We've
up
got
to code.
elevator issues and
Yes,
there's all sorts of
there's a
upgrades
lot
that
of
we could
issues
get our
over
money
there.
out of.
Right.
Vicky's shaking her head, yes.
And eventually, I mean, that one will like make money for the city.
Does council disagree with that direction on the spending?
That was my suggestion, so, yeah, I'm in agreement.
And I think, and we had mentioned earlier about looking into hot funds for the skate park. I think I do think that qualifies, but I also think there's ways to increase the capacity to which it qualifies. And with that, we bring in Vision to assist with that project and, double dip under sports facility and art.
Well, there's also another group that Michael mentioned that's working on the skate park, so perhaps they've got some ideas.
From what I understand, they've got some ideas on raising some money, and I think they're gonna actually put some money in the bank towards this, but it's not gonna be anything close to,
Yeah, okay. Be nice if someone donated all that concrete, right?
yeah.
I'm glad I have a face mask on.
Mayor and Council, you have not mentioned the vac truck, but I'm assuming that's in the same category as a sweeper.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's the most viable piece of equipment inside this city. I was a part of getting that one, and all the guys had just begged for it. Because the last one we had was used from OMI, I think.
Well, let's look at what's happened just since January. The cost of that equipment has increased by $45,000. They're not getting cheaper. What benefit do we have to continue to put that off?
And we had talked about keeping the one we have now as a backup, right?
Flint and them use it just every day too. Yeah, whenever they get a chance. That's what we'd like to do is let Flint kind of take control of the old one when possible, and we're going to use the new one in the wastewater and water. I mean, let me tell you, I went out the other day at the chicken place that's going in by Walmart. They trenched a hole with that vac and that pressure. Never had to get in a ditch, man. It's just, it saves a man, it saves injuries, it's safe. I mean, it's a workhorse.
While you're standing there, can you give us a timeline on the upgrades to the Public Works bathroom? And Flint, would you please pass along the apologies that we've let it get to the condition that it's in? I think you deserve better.
Yep, I'll get some quotes and timeline.
Council have any more directives to staff? This is it.
Thank y'all for
can't-
about the easiest budget I've ever been associated with.
Oh, knock on wood.
We're good.
I appreciate the hard work of all staff.
Exactly.
Anything else, sir? Have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a second from Mike. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.